From Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana, this is The Grouch and the Brainstorm. Season 2, Episode 2. It's on.
Let's do it.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Mike. I'm here with Jill.
Hey.
And Matt.
Hey.
And we have two special guests today. We have Thomas.
Hi.
And we have Chris.
What it do?
And
They
Chris
are
is actually
special.
Chris. You was on in May.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
What? That's 7 months ago.
Yeah,
It was
your
1 year sobriety.
So
1 year
you are
sobriety.
actually closer to year 2 now than you are year 1.
Yes, sir.
I was gonna say than you were year 1 then, but that was your year 1
Yep.
day. So welcome, guys. Glad to have you here. Always, we love having people on the show. I do. Before we kick it off, I got a couple things I wanna announce. Number one is that our podcast is still available on Spotify. Yeah, just find it the same way you did, or hopefully it's in your favorites. But we're also available on Apple Podcasts now. And if that confuses you, all you got to do is go to the app, the podcast app on your iPhone or Apple device, and swipe down to search, and you can search The Grouch and the Brainstorm, and what pops up is going to be our logo, and then you just follow that logo. And the reason I say that is I don't know how Spotify works, but I know on Apple Podcast, whenever we release this episode that we're recording right now, it's going to be a notification on your phone if you allow notifications. So it'll just pop up on your phone saying, hey, new episode of Grouch and the Brainstorm is out. So I don't have any way to follow the analytics on it yet. I'm still working on that part, but just to make it available on another platform was a milestone. So I'm glad.
Yep, very cool.
Glad we got that out there. Cold weather headed this way.
Snowstorm.
Yeah, 17 degrees when I left Texas this morning. So we got a lot. We got a lot of footage to cover. How's it footage when you're on the radio?
Good question.
Tapage.
We got a lot of tapage to
We don't
cover.
even have tape, though.
Oh, God, that was
Me
so
and Jill are
1980s
old.
of me.
If you guys are watching this on your VCR right now,
We're alcoholics. It's pretty close.
Or your cassette tape.
Or
Yeah.
your Android phone.
Walkman.
who in here, hold on, who in here made a cassette tape off the radio for a chick to tell her how much you love her with songs like
Well,
Bryan
let me tell you one thing.
Adams?
I didn't.
Well, I don't think anybody can see us raising our hands, so there was no.
Well, I raised my hand,
But
and
yes,
if you
I
didn't
have.
do it, it was a killer back
Mine
in
was
the day.
80s. Mine was 80s music to my babysitter.
I spent
just
2
complete
weeks making a
Chris, that's
tape
weird.
for this
Yeah.
chick, and I'm telling you, I gave it to her. I gave it to her, and she looked at me, and she's like, "Well, why?" And I was like, "Because I love you, Mom."
Oh, my.
She didn't even have a cassette player. And
Now, was it the cassette that was like, has the yellow and the pink little like designs on it? Do you remember that cassette in the 80s?
Like some Def
like a
Leppard stuff.
regular. Wait, what are you talking about?
Where have y'all been? It was the clear cassette, and
Yeah.
it had like pink and yellow little like triangles or something.
I didn't shop in the Barbie store.
I don't remember that.
I can't recall doing that either.
There's a Barbie store.
Yeah, I do know. I just called my sponsor not too long ago. I was like, "Hey, look, dude, what do you think about like me making a mixtape? You know, because that's what you're supposed to do for crushes, right?" And he's like, "It's a terrible idea. Nobody even has a cassette player anymore." And I'm like, "Yeah, well." This is true because it would have cost me a lot of money, right? I'd had to transfer it from Mac to tape. It would have cost hundreds of dollars to do all this,
Well,
and then
you
I'd
can
had to buy a
email
tape
it to
player
her
for
now.
you know, that's
Or
true.
whoever.
It was a
yeah.
good idea at the time, and then he justified it for me. So
All right. So we talked a little bit on the last episode. I think it was the last episode about AA slogans, right?
Yep.
And so as I thought back and I was listening to the episode, and we're not going to do just AA slogans on every episode. You know, that would be that'd be a whole season in itself, right?
Right.
So, but the one that really stuck out to me is progress, not perfection. And that is a AA slogan that I hear a lot in the meetings. And, so I remember in my early recovery, I was thinking, man, progress, not what a cop-out. What a cop out, right? I can, well,
Lame.
I'm getting better. I can make progress. I actually thought about that, but as the longer I stay sober, and the more I see, the more I realize that progress, not perfection, pretty much applies to a lot of stuff in life, not just Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Chris, you're a bodybuilder, and I can only imagine you strive for something, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And once you get it, that's great, but you have to continue to make progress
Always
in order to
progress.
strive for it. And same with my recovery, and hopefully a lot of other folks' recovery. It is definitely, there are signs if we're not progressing, right? There are just signs that we're not progressing, and I think a lot of those times is where we have to take off that bite of reality in the middle of our recovery and say, hey, I'm not progressing because of this, or this is what I'm allowing to drag me down, or whatever. So that is what I want to talk about today. Progress, not perfection. And then right there at the last few minutes of it, we'll hit a little bit on second tradition, which I probably could lead into anyway. So Matt, what you got on progress, not perfection deal?
5 years later, working on 6 years, there's no perfection so far. Hasn't been no perfection, but I can look back and see very steady progress, and that includes 2 steps forward, 1 back. Is still progress, and there's been some back stepping, habitual line stepping for if you know. But I mean, we just, the thing is, and I think in recovery too, but I think in general, we're all human beings, so especially as alcoholics, we tend to just beat ourselves to death over every little thing. Oh, well, I should have done this. I should have done that. And we're all human beings, and and not only with me, I have to sometimes, I feel like I'm still back 6 years ago. Like I feel like I just came in here a lot of the time. But what carries me along is when I come in and I see like Chris, and he gets a year, and he does his thing, and now he's sponsoring people and he's doing it. I go, look back at this, like look at where you've been. And I sit in there a lot and I look at people that have come in the room, and man, it's amazing. And you see the progress. And I was talking to Michelle the other day. I was like, dude, do you realize how far you've come? Like it's crazy. And that always kind of lights a fire under me too, is when I see other people really get it and take off with it. And it is, though. I mean, even the last couple of days I've been pretty going over some stuff that's been kind of crazy, and I just got to keep plugging, just keep plugging along, doing my thing. I can only do what I am, and I can only do what I can do. And good, bad, or indifferent, it is moving in a good direction, and I just have to let it and trust God that it continues in that direction, and
Sure.
And do the best I can. But mistakes. I think mistakes too. I used to make mistakes as far as perfection. They were really dumb, self-inflicted stuff, and still make some dumb mistakes. I'm not Albert Einstein. I know y'all are shocked out there, but
I'm surprised.
But yeah, I know. But
Mississippi educated.
but today I've eliminated a lot of that, a lot of just the self-inflicted, burn it to the ground mistakes, and I keep it to a minimum. And normally it becomes a learning experience instead of the world's falling apart. I go, okay, well, what's going on here? And then that progresses as I go, and as I've dealt with problems and issues, when they come up again, because they do in life, it's not as big a deal the second time. And the third and the fourth and the fifth, it's really not a big deal at all. But it's that first few times of maybe handling it right, maybe not handling it right. But that's why they make sponsors and higher powers and all those people. And, that's what that's for. So, but yeah, that's kind of my thinking on it,
Where does it come from? Where does progress, not perfection, come from? Do y'all know?
How it works.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like the big buck.
We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection, and of course that is, I can only imagine some progress is better than what I was making before I got into the rooms. You know, I mean, it's who strives for that. You know, most people, even alcoholic or not alcoholic, don't strive for anything like that. They just get up in the morning and do what they do, and then just go about their day. And it's no, you know, trying to get better spiritually. If I look back collectively over the years, though, I can see where there's been a lot of progress spiritually, right? And I don't know if that ever even can end. Can you ever stop growing spiritually?
No.
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
I mean, if you choose to, I'm sure you could.
Yeah. Like with anything else, you know,
Well-
if I choose to eat garbage, then I can pretty much bank on the
I
same
mean,
results.
it's kind of like
but-
growing a plant or something. I mean, you stop watering it and taking care
Yeah,
of it,
it's
it
gonna
dies
die.
off. But if
Yep.
you,
You know?
if you, you know, you keep working on it, and I just had this conversation yesterday with somebody, and they were like, I thought this would be a certain point, and it just keeps going, you know. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. So,
Well, better than growing the other way.
well,
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
gaining weight.
Oh,
Probably not going to get taller.
Why y'all keep
Definitely.
calling me out, man?
Hey,
I lost like 9 pounds and I gained 7. I'm
I
like,
stopped growing in the
"Are you
4th
kidding me?"
grade.
But that's progress.
That's progress, man.
You stopped growing in the 4th grade.
I mean, taller.
He calls me out
you
on
know,
eating junk, and I'm like,
You were a really tall 4th grade.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it didn't stop. I mean, it didn't continue. I didn't continue to grow taller. My kids have no shot.
Yeah.
It happens.
Well, progress. You know,
Yeah,
I guess.
progress.
And that's you know, you make a good point though. If I'm going to sit around thinking of how I'm going to get taller, I've got I've got a lot of thinking to do.
Right?
Thomas, what do you think about this progress, not perfection thing?
I'm glad it says spiritual progress.
Yeah.
Because I have difficulty with just like everyday life progress, because I still burn crap down, man. You know, I really do. I mean, I try not to, but now, and it's, I don't think it's an intentional thing, but my spiritual progress has made it where even like in just terrible, crappy times, I have something that I can, you know, lean back on and say, all right, God, take me out of this. You know, help me get out of this. I know I made the mess, but what do I got to do different? You know, I can look at what I've done wrong today
Yeah.
and try to correct that. Where in the past I would have just kept on rolling, you know, steamrollered it and made things worse than what they were in the first place. Now, as far as sobriety goes, you know, I can honestly say I've never, even like in just terrible times, you know, have I thought about drinking, because I've got that spiritual progress in my life. Because when I got here, I had no spirituality, none. I care less, and I think that's most of us when we get here.
Yeah.
And you know, I just got confused as hell.
That's all.
But you know, I can honestly say I have not thought about drinking. I think y'all have heard me say this in the room. Some of y'all might have. I'm not sure, but you know, I had a moment. I don't know. It's been a couple years ago now where I was like, why am I even doing this? You know, I don't have any family. I got my daughter, son-in-law, and grandkid, and they've told me they liked me fine when I was drinking. They didn't give two craps. So I'm talking to one of my sponsees about it. He says, sounds like you're not doing exactly what you told me to do.
Yeah.
You need to write a gratitude list.
I remember that.
You know, what has happened in your life? What's better in your life today than it was when you were drinking? And I have to say everything, even during the bad times. You know, to me, that's spiritual progress. And having somebody to kick you in the butt and remind you that that's where you need to get back to is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a sponsee.
Yeah. Because obviously they've used it,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, or they've tried to use it and it's starting to work. You know, I worked for a company before I went to work for my present employer. I've been both now 18 years apiece. But the first one, for the first part of my life, they had we like perfection was expected. You just, you know, it was hammered into us, and in my line of work, what we do, and you do it perfect, and don't tolerate people who don't do it perfect. And then there came a time whenever someone else took over, right, a new divisional or whatever, and their motto was perfection is unaffordable and unattainable. Stop. So basically, it gave us all a way out. Quit trying to get perfection. But, and the reason I said all that as I look back, because both the companies I work for are successful companies, but perfection is unaffordable and unattainable. Man, if I tried to do that in my real life, and what a lot of weight to put on myself for starters. But if I'm just making a little progress, right? Like at work, we have we have probably, I don't know, let's say 300 places that we store merchandise in the back, right? 300. Some of them could be very small. Some could be 8 foot by 4 foot, just different sizes. And the goal is to keep them empty, keep everything on the sales floor, right? So I tell them a lot of times we'll get backed up and we'll go through the holidays and all of them will be full. And you look and you go, okay, how about this? If we had done 15, right, one a day for the past 15 days, we'd have 15 done. If we'd done 3 a day for the past 15 days, we'd have 45 done. But not doing any every day because they're all full doesn't get anything done, right? So it's that taking that time, and we can start where we should have done this or we should have done that, and what we end up doing is shitting all over ourselves. It doesn't matter what we should have did. What can we start doing today? Yeah. Right? We can start making progress on that today. And I'm not obsolete from that. I can start making progress on my spirituality today if I want to, or anything, really. If I want to build a car and I think about it for a year, hell, if I'd have been buying one part a day, I'd be that much ahead. Right?
Yeah.
Of course, it'd be a Lego car. It wouldn't be an actual working, moving vehicle.
What was that Johnny Cash song, One Piece at a Time?
One piece at a time. Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I can't say I've either.
More
He
like
worked for Cadillac in the plant, and every day he'd sneak a part of a Cadillac out in his lunchbox.
Yeah, it was like it was a 56,
Took him
57,
30 years,
58,
so
59.
all the parts were there.
you're
Yeah,
talking
dude,
about
that's
one
a
piece at a
classic,
time.
dude.
I'm thinking about like one peanut butter cup at a time.
Well, me, it was chocolate chip cookie at a time this morning.
I can't say I've ever heard that song.
I'll send it to you. It's,
I can
it's
find it.
great.
One piece at a time.
Yeah. He wanted a Cadillac. He couldn't afford it. But yeah, it took him 30 years. By the time he retired, he had pieces of cars over 30 years. None of them fit.
Well,
the holes
my
weren't,
gosh.
2 different headlights, 2 different tail
Yeah.
lights, different bumpers, fenders.
Yeah. So,
Apparently,
Wow.
y'all have heard about it.
oh yeah, man.
Yeah, there's the lyrics. It was released in 1976.
3 years before I was born.
What'd you break, Jill?
Recon.
Oh, Jill's been under the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I work in a prison. A lot of pathogens.
I don't even know what a pathogen is. But I can imagine.
A lot of airborne pathogens.
Oh, diseases.
A lot of birds flying around.
No, that's pigeons. I know it sounds similar, but it's not.
Don't feed the pathogen.
That's right.
She brings birdseed to work.
Oh man, I'm not going to start talking about our prisoners.
I got the prison crud.
Oh man.
A lot of people.
Well, at least you got it on this end.
Yeah.
I mean, the outside of prison end of it. I didn't mean like
They meant the
head.
freedom part.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Freedom's great.
You got to, you're not gathered around a bunch of the other dudes in a room that all have it.
I am.
I
Wait,
don't
what?
have it.
Oh, just never mind.
It's okay.
Brain foggy.
It comes with some confusion as well. It's one of the symptoms.
Well, Chris, like talking about progress and perfection, and Thomas too. Thomas, how long you been sober?
4 years, 8 months,
years.
29 days.
Okay, dang, that's accurate. Sorry, it's down to the
Somebody's
nose.
got a counter.
I do. I just looked at it when
Yeah,
we
Really?
started.
counter
Yeah.
too.
Okay,
1,720 something.
so I mean, you've been, Thomas has been, and Chris too, long enough to where you start to get that life ebb and flow of things, just life things. It doesn't go great. How do you handle those things looking now versus when you handled them before you came in here? How do you look at things when the shit hits the fan, for lack of a better word? And if you had that kind of,
So prior to coming into the rooms of AA, and I did not have like Thomas had alluded to, that spirituality. I didn't have that. Everything you always hear in the rooms of AA, everything's got a motive behind it, right? So whenever I had motive, and I knew what my 50-meter target or my short-term, long-term goal was, if I didn't achieve that goal, then I looked at myself as a failure. I put myself down quite a bit. I did not understand that, if you couldn't perfect it, then you were just nobody. But coming into the rooms of AA and listening to everybody talk and do this one day at a time thing, that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. Because I didn't understand, I thought that, well, maybe I can just go 2 or 3 days without a drink. I mean, hell, I just went 30 in treatment. Let me head over to the koala. Let me call the family and be like, hey, I know it's going to be hard to believe, but you boys got 30 days. So they didn't give a shit, and nobody did. They just wanted to know how I was going to stay sober. And but that one day at a time thing, that started working. And I always talk about it whenever I share in meetings and just reflecting on decisions that I made during my drinking tenure versus decisions that I make today. And I'm okay with failing. I am 100% okay as long as I don't make the same mistake. Yeah. And I'm better today than I was yesterday. So it took me a long time to understand that. I mean, I did my first bodybuilding competition in sobriety, and for the first time stepping on that stage, and I think I placed dead last. But for the first time, I was okay with that. Yeah. And I looked at it as, if God thought that I was ready for it, then, he gave it to me. But you got to work for everything. What is, we're talking about slogans. I think that was on the last podcast. Was work, think, live.
Someone said, listen.
Listen. And that was big for me. Girls. So, but I can see that progress today. I could not see that when I first got into the rooms of AA. I certainly did not see it before the rooms of AA. So when you see that motivation and you start seeing the things that are working, that's still motive. But it gives you something to work for even more.
And I look at failure now as a lesson.
Yeah.
It sucks, and it does, and I don't let it control the rest of my whole future. I don't burn the next generations of my family down because something didn't work out. And it may bum me out, and I may go through a little bit of stuff, but I always now, and that sponsor and being around you guys, that's all those things, and prayer to go, what did I learn here? And if I learn something out of it, it's not a mistake, man. Right. It's just life,
Yeah. As alcoholics, we have a tendency to be all or nothing thinkers.
Oh,
and it's either perfection or it's like,
that could be a whole episode.
Oh, right.
It needs to be.
And so that's the thing. We have to get in that gray area.
You're driving down the road and you hear a strange noise in your car and you're driving a horse and buggy you're already from point A to point Z. Yeah, keep going, Jill. I like that.
Well, that's just we got to be careful of, and to get out of that those polar opposites. I was talking
to somebody yesterday about this exact thing, and we're doing some business stuff coming up and all that, and some stuff going on this year, and she was like, well, why are you? And I said, because I know what my mind's going to do when that starts.
Yeah,
it's 100 miles an hour. There's no drive the speed limit. I'm stopped or I'm 100 miles an hour. And she goes, you really got to learn how to just kind of ease down the road. And I'm like, I just don't have that. I work on it, but I don't have it yet, And I don't know if that's an alcoholic or just a personality, but it tends to be with us, the type people we are. It's kind of always that way.
Who's always saying time takes time?
Yeah.
And this is, that's something that I think over time, we learn, but it certainly takes time because like you said, it's either, all or nothing or stop, all gas or nothing. And, but whenever you're able to stop and reflect on, what did I learn? These are questions we didn't ask ourselves prior to recovery. So that's progress, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of time, it's hard. It's easy. It's easy now, looking back when I first got sober, and be like, "Damn, look at what's happened in my life." But in that moment, I didn't see any progress.
No.
I thought I was going backwards, and it scared the hell out of me. It's something that has grown over time, and what's really cool. Like you mentioned, I can see it happening now because I didn't understand these were all lessons, and this is how I was going to learn about my higher power, about how things just go in life, because I was disillusioned for so many years and decades and all. But I'm thankful, for this slogan. When I think about like spiritual perfection. I meant whatever the shit.
Spiritual
Oh my God.
progress.
Close enough.
Progress. Yeah. Sorry, I'm foggy headed today.
And to tack onto that too, though,
What was-
when you're making progress and you have issues and you have problems, before it was everybody else's fault.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Now it's second nature, and I go,
It's me.
I may for just a second go, well, they're pissing me off, but then I go, what did I do here?
Yeah.
Like, how
Yeah.
did I handle this?
They don't
What is
have
it
the
about
power
me?
to piss you off.
And you know what's really bad is when you have to sit back and go, yeah, I suck. You know, like, I suck.
But that's
So
something
it
I
was
think we
me.
can eat today. We can take in.
I don't
we couldn't
like
do that
eating
before.
it, and I don't like eating that still. But
hey.
I have to sit back and go, hey, dude, this is you.
That's
this
right.
ain't nothing else.
Yeah.
So when you can do that, you can do about anything. I mean, when you can look at it that way, and most of the time when I'm not doing well, it's because I'm trying to find a way to blame something else on somebody else. And
Well, it's taking responsibility for your actions, and that as well has been progress, not perfection. It's something I had to learn how to do is take responsibility for my actions. It's every aspect of my life. I can look at this and say, you know what? Everything has gotten better. I can look at, the spiritual aspect, which I didn't have a higher power. I didn't believe in jack shit. And now, like, I pray every day. I follow the golden rule. And I have these like principles and values that I try to do every single day. Am I perfect? No, but that's what the amends are for. And so with that, there's progress, because now I don't hold on to that stuff anymore, or I don't hate you for the rest of my life anymore. I can make amends or forgive and do whatever I need to do. Everything has changed. Being an employee, being, even my bank account, like I can just do things I couldn't do then. And to me, it's awesome. Like I said, it took many, many years to even remotely think that I had progressed at all. Because I still had that, I'm still the worst, or, and I'm still comparing to a lot of people, and I just wasn't where everybody else was or where I thought I should be. And it just, God, it took me a long time, because I was also playing that tug of war with my higher power, trying to make things happen, and, learning to let go of the need of control. I am a perfectionist.
I think a lot of that, like you talked about comparing, like I would always compare my insides to everybody's outsides. And when I I met Matt for the first time, and he's just this happy-go-lucky
beautiful
dude.
hunk of man.
Just talking about fishing.
Looking at your outsides.
I don't know about all that.
And, when I see that, I can't relate to that, because I'm too busy trying to compare my insides to your outsides. Well, he doesn't know what I'm going through. And so, when I can't have what you show on the outside, then I look at myself as
Inadequate.
inadequate.
Absolutely.
And I'm not, I'm obviously I'm a failure. I'm not doing something right. So a lot of these things I just had to be taught. I had to, and I really had to learn a lot about humility. I mean, a lot.
But with humility comes too, you say being humble, but at the same time, you learn to look at yourself and go, okay, well, I am doing this good.
Yeah.
I'll take my lick on the
Right.
stuff I'm doing, but at the same time, I'm not that bad of a person. I do this, and this. So I got good stuff there too. And I
Right.
think you can honestly look at it when you're willing to go, I'm the problem. You can also see some of the good things and go, okay, this is not the end of the world.
And that's the key is admitting that, I am the problem and working on yourself, not trying to justify why you're doing all these things because everybody else made you do it.
Right.
So that is a huge progress in my
So going back to the perfectionist, because this is a problem for a lot of people in recovery. You get sober and you can think back to just like everything that you screwed up your whole entire life, and you decide like, how am I going to make up for this? Well, I'm going to do the best I can at everything, and I'm going to be a perfectionist because I'm going to prove everybody wrong that I can do things and I can do it right, and that's what's happened in my life. And I don't think that's too uncommon when it comes to people like us. We want to prove that we can do stuff. I mean, that was huge for me because I just.
But
like
then
I
we
said,
fail, and what's the outcome?
Give
A
up.
lesson today.
I mean,
Yeah, less
Yeah.
of the day back then.
yeah.
Done.
I mean, even like last year, I see different things. Like I still, even today, I'll still struggle with my relationship with my higher power. I say me and him have a love-hate relationship. It's just, because sometimes, I'm still, you're not doing it fast enough for me.
Yeah.
But then I'll have moments like last year, and I don't know if I should say it on here, but I don't care. But, last year I was in a situationship, and I was so pissy one night. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go buy a 6-pack of O'Doul's, and that way I can smell it. I was an Al-Anon for almost a year, right? And I was like, well, I'm going to go buy a 6-pack of O'Doul's, and I'll show her. I just wanted her to smell it on me. I couldn't find it in 4 different stores. Right? So now
Everybody had the same idea that day.
Was
It's Valentine's Day.
I'm like, how is it possible that there is no O'Doul's in 4 different stores, right?
Well,
and
higher
then-
power.
So I
Well,
would call
and-
that a sign.
Well, and then I was like, sitting around one day. It took me about a week, and I was like, because I was thinking God hated me. And then I got to thinking, I was like, no, he doesn't. Because if he did, there would have been O'Doul's.
Absolutely.
And what would have happened, because I know my alcoholic brain, I would have got that flavor, which I love, and it wouldn't have been what I was looking for at the moment. I was looking for more than just pissing her off. I didn't know that at the time. But I'm pretty damn sure if I would have started with 6 O'Doul's, I probably would have ended up drinking.
You know what I like
know?
about what you just said is one thing about like progressing in life is being able to look at it in a different perspective. Where we're used to kill this is like, oh, hey, that was a God thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that's a little bit of cognitive behavioral therapy, but like we have to. And so sometimes I have to look at my perfectionism like that. I have to just be like, okay, because you know what? Have to be careful, because what happens if you're a perfectionist? You get pissed
Yeah.
because things aren't going exactly the way you want them to, or whatnot. I have to be very careful at work.
Can't control the situation. Can't control the outcome.
Other people.
You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah, the other people thing.
unpredictability.
That's a fun one.
Oh, dude, I still hate not being able to control other people.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean, just be real about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, if they'd only do what I wanted them to.
Yeah. And we can't understand. It's like, why won't these people do what I'm,
Yeah.
I
think it just sets
drive
us up
ourselves
for
crazy.
failure.
Absolutely.
And-
Absolutely. Here's a side note. Just occurred to me, right? So you're talking about O'Doul's. Do they make non-alcoholic whiskey?
No, and Jack Daniels, I believe, is making one.
Really?
now. Yeah.
Like, I was like, why do they always make beer, but they don't make like other stuff?
Keep
Well, I
me
think there's a
away.
big,
I mean-
a big trend with mocktails going on right now, and you can buy
Okay.
all kind of
Dry
like
January.
non-alcoholic champagne and wines now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Eventually, they'll change the name of them.
Yeah.
It won't be called champagne or wines because they're not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're just grape juice at that point.
Yeah.
So, or something. So, I don't know. But,
Everybody's shooting blanks nowadays.
I mean,
Yes, Kentucky 74, authentic taste and smooth finish.
wow. Wow.
Who ever thought it'd be cool to shoot blanks?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest.
Nah.
I'd just soon drink sweet tea as I would non-alcoholic whiskey.
yeah. No thanks. I'll just
I mean,
drink
I don't-
water.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm drinking non-alcoholic vodka.
Oh, right. That's what.
yeah.
Oh, Zarka.
There you go.
Ozarka.
Dasani.
Yeah, they changed the name to Taka. Put water in the bottle and charge you $7 for a fifth.
It is, well, it's vegan. it's keto and it's gluten free.
Oh man,
Wow.
And I'm not judging, but what I'm, when I,
That's what we first say right before we judge.
but when I look at stuff like that, and it's just personal, with me. But when I look at stuff like that, I use that to justify, well, I'm not drinking the real stuff, you know. But I know my alcoholic brain, and I know that,
Like I was saying about the O'Doul's.
If you have 6, you'll probably go to the real stuff. But that's exactly how I would think.
And here's what the program's gotten for me too, as I go along and I see the growth in it. So some of that shit that I would conjure in my head, like I could just,
I could just have one.
I was a buller maker guy. I'll drink some non-alcoholic shots of whiskey with non-alcoholic beer. That'll work. The problem is now I'm around other people in recovery, and there's people that are sponsees, and there's people I have a sponsor, and I go, what if a picture showed up of me at a bar with a shot and a beer? They don't know it's non-alcoholic, number one.
Right.
And they go, he's full of crap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have that sort of a backwards checks and balances, to go. I had a guy ask me to get alcohol for him one day in a store, just get him a beer while I was in there. And I was like, man, I'm not, because I don't want to carry it out the store.
Right.
And somebody drive by and see on Uri Drive out there, hey, man, he just carried a fence post Miller Lite out. And, it wouldn't look right, even though I didn't do anything,
Well, I guess that goes back to thine own self be true. See, because at this point, my sobriety, I don't care what people think. I really don't.
I would go in and get some ice.
I've gone in. I've bought my son-in-law whiskey for whiskey in a glass set for Christmas, and I've bought other people beer. I walked out of Circle K for my Al-Anon last year. It is what it is.
I bought a Christmas present. I bought some of that proper number 12 for my brother Connor's whiskey. And, I went and did that. And, but, it's just me personally. It's like I look at that and go, I got a friend right now. He just got out of treatment and trying not to put himself in situations that I feel like I can't tell him, hey, dude, I better stay away from that. He doesn't realize that, I've been working on this for 5 years. I can go in there and buy a bottle of whiskey for a present. But it's more for them to go, hey, he does the same thing, and that's just my thinking on it, I guess. But,
it's almost like
me in line.
When I first got into recovery, as a matter of fact, when I was over at Brentwood, it had been brought to my attention about taking a detour on the way home. So I would bypass all the places that I normally used to stop at. So what would generally take me 15, 20 minutes to get home would take me
9 hours.
Yeah, no kidding.
You bypass the state of Louisiana.
I went through Mississippi and passed up through Arkansas. And, but, now I'm to the point in my recovery to where I can pass those stores and I know it's there subconsciously, but it doesn't bother me, but, and I hear a lot of that in the rooms of AA, where they have a certain level of recovery and they can walk in and buy it as a gift or something. I'm not there yet. I'm not chancing it. But there's nobody around my immediate support system, family, friends that don't know my story. So it's just like that reunion deal last night and showing up, and everybody's drinking. That was the first social event I have been to in my 19 months of recovery. And I wasn't worried about it. And plus I left to go to the treatment center to chair meeting. But, I think that was a good thing because, again, that's progress. I definitely would not have had that. I would have not have left a social event and said, hey, guys, I'm going to hit this AA meeting real quick. I'll be back in an hour.
Yeah.
No, I'd have been shit hammered. But it was good to do that. It was awesome to be able to come back and, get offered like, nah, I'm good. I don't drink. And those are just decisions I could not have made during, before the rooms of AA.
And it'll get better. I mean, it was a long time before I was comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And now I just don't think that much about it. If I'm at an event and people are drinking and they're doing their thing. I mean, I sat in Pat O's at 1 o'clock in the morning with some family last year in New Orleans, and they're all 3 sheets to the wind, and I watched a gigantic roach crawl up the wall. And I was like,
That was
I
the
got
highlight of your night.
My bottle of water. I'm glad I'm not drinking out of those glasses.
You were in New Orleans. That's a regular size.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Yeah, that wasn't gigantic.
that son of a gun had his own cell phone. That's how big he was, dude.
What do they call those down
Like he
there?
was talking on the phone. I think he
kind of-
texted somebody.
Water.
Marsupial.
Water bugs.
Super rat. Nutra rat.
No,
I was
yeah.
like,
Oh,
the
yeah.
We actually
Is it
have a lot of
kangaroo?
Nutra rats here.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Things are
we
bigger
do.
than dogs.
I've
Yeah,
seen
dude,
some
they're-
huge ones out on the lake. So, have you ever stopped for a moment in your recovery? Because all of us now have a decent amount of time, and thought about, wow, I would have never done that while I was drinking.
Yes.
And I don't mean I don't
yes.
mean anything crazy. I mean like admit I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Catch
Forget-
myself going, you know what, I'm wrong, or don't do anything at all whenever I normally would have. For me, that was a real sign of progress because I don't have to do anything. I'm thinking I've got to argue back with someone who's
Yeah.
mad at me. I can say, you know what, I'm wrong. I'm going to shut up now. And I don't have to say anything. Now, if they want to continue on and on and on, that's their problem. Obviously, they've got one. It's if I acknowledge it, it becomes our problem. But I don't have to do anything. That.
Yeah.
And I remember whenever I look back one time and I thought, I don't have to even entertain any of this. Take care of my side of the street, get that cleared up, and then move on.
Mr. Joe brings it up all the time, and this is something that really stuck in my head really early on, was just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean I have to say it. Ooh. And I mean, I was the type of guy that if it crossed my
Oh,
head,
yeah, it's coming out.
God's telling me it's got to come out of my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
You got to know exactly how I'm feeling.
Right that
is,
second.
but just like Mike said,
It makes me feel better for you to know, like you care.
Sometimes the best
Yeah.
thing is just to not say or do anything.
It's
else.
wild
Well,
how that
Joe-
all changes.
Joe also says I've never got in trouble for something I didn't say.
Exactly.
Well, I have. I didn't say 4 on the golf course one time, and I nailed my grand sponsor with a golf ball, and boy, my sponsor ripped me up that day, boy. But,
What do they say when you, it's act, don't react?
right.
And that comes back to the think stuff.
Yep.
If somebody says something that pisses me off, I don't have to react to that today. I can think about what they said. Why did it piss me off? And then I can react if I need to. And I'm like you, and I still have a problem keeping my mouth shut. I'm going to tell you what's on my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to do it today. I won't do it in front of everybody.
Right.
But I will pull you off and say, look, dude,
Yeah.
this shit ain't right.
Whereas before, you didn't care who the
Oh, in
audience
front of the whole
was.
room.
You do it
Yeah.
in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Well, and almost even depending on what it is, now it comes out of a place of love in a weird way. Somebody may piss you off, but at this point in my life, if they're in my life, then they're in this program or their family. So it's somebody that I care about and I deal with regularly. And, I want to be straight with them so that we can go on,
That's
and-
growth.
Yeah. And I don't want to, and it may not be just the most pleasant thing at the moment, but when they realize, number one, you didn't pop off right off the bat and be like, you idiot or whatever, and then you give it a minute and you talk to them and bring it up, it does come from a different different deal, and people tend to take it better.
Yeah, the pause has changed my life.
Hey, and I'll even go further with that.
Changed a lot of people's lives.
I've had the same sponsor all of my sobriety. We were hanging out last night for a little bit and talking. And if y'all are out there, just wear your sponsors out. Like if you're new, that's what they're there. I hear people go, "Oh, I didn't want to call my sponsor about that with 60 days of," and I go, "That's what they're there for. You're
that's their
supposed to do
purpose.
that, But we still talk quite a bit on dealing with life, and it's funny as I've got around him and I recognize his personality. He won't admit it, but he has the same problem I do, which is open your mouth when something dumb happens and I've watched him do the same thing that he tells me to do, and he'll just turn and walk off. And I'm like, I know what's happening right now, and nobody else does maybe, but I'm like, okay, he has to work on the same crap I do, and it definitely makes life easier.
It's different today whenever, prior to coming to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, it was if you pulled me aside, I took it as an insult, so you're questioning, my ability to make decisions. And again, that goes back to that reflection, but looking at it today, if anyone at this table, for all intents and purposes, if you guys had pulled me to the side and had something that you were concerned about or wanted to talk to me about offline, one, I would know you would do it offline. I wouldn't know. I know you're not doing it in a group setting, but I can take that and listen and learn from that today, and again, that's where that progress, not perfection, that growing, I know is making a difference today, because I can accept that and I can look at my wrongdoings or look at it from your perspective, whereas I didn't do before. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, when I always just go to the default setting of it's probably my fault, then we can talk about stuff from there on, So,
well, Chris, to your point, I've had, I think I was 11 or 12 years sober. I had my sponsor after a meeting one time pull me to the side and say, hey, we may want to think about this.
Yeah.
He worded it very.
That's good.
Yeah. We may want to think about this. And, at that point, I become Daniel on the Karate Kid.
Daniel's son?
I gotta stop and go, okay, he's got more recovery than me. He's been sober longer. Listen to what he's got to say. And I did. And I listened to what he had to say. And I effectively changed how I responded to that particular topic in meetings from then on.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing I did want to ask y'all collectively is, did you ever reach a point in your recovery that somebody, and it does not have to be your sponsor, but let's say a sponsee or just anybody in general, asked you a question and you felt like you were a point in your sobriety to where like, no, I got this. Like where it was almost like a one-up situation where you felt like you had just enough sobriety or more sobriety, so you didn't even try to acknowledge what they were. Am I making any sense?
You're making no sense whatsoever to me.
Hang on. Someone with less sobriety says something you need to correct.
Correct.
Okay. And then at this point, instead of reflecting and going, okay, instead you were like, I got more sobriety. I got this.
Like if,
I get it.
With your sponsor, you know, if you felt like you made the opposite
than what I did,
than what you did,
and yes,
has that ever crossed any of y'all's minds?
Absolutely, it's happened.
Yeah. Okay,
it's happened a lot. People have said stuff and made suggestions to me with more sobriety and less sobriety, and I was just like, oh hell no, I'm gonna do what I got this. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Well, I think I was about, I don't know, I'm gonna say 4 years sober. Okay, and I was gonna buy my son a car. Okay. No, let me go even further. I was going to buy, my son had wrecked the car I bought him, totaled it. And I was going to buy him another one. And everybody, like the Waynes and the Woodrows and the Randys and the Fields, the 30-year guys, like the 40-year guys were like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Don't do that, right? And I was just like, I got this. They don't know about my finances. They don't know about, now, hindsight being 50-50, yeah, they were right.
Yeah.
And they always right. They're always right. I've never had one tell me something was, Randy told me, I was 38 when I got sober. When I was about 45 or 43, Randy told me, he said, you're going to go completely bald in the next few years. I got this. No, I'm not. And then, finally I just quit hanging on, man.
I guess that's what I was getting at. I'm really glad you brought that up, Mike, because that's exactly where I was going with that, and seeing if anybody could relate to making the opposite decision and seeing how well that worked for them.
If somebody
I do that all the time.
Something,
Still.
Yeah, and if somebody says something, I'll consider it,
right,
and I'll think about it, but then I'll go, sometimes it's some pretty wild people that don't have much of a program. Normally, when you hear that kind of stuff, and I'll go, they're not there yet.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I had a situation with a lady at the club last year, and it was a misunderstanding on something.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, and she brought it up, and I went, I was wrong on that, and I didn't see, and we made the deal and amends and all that good stuff, and you know, but I took about 2 days to think about it when I left because I knew my intention wasn't to hurt her feelings, but I actually did, and I never knew it.
Yeah.
And you know, and I went, yeah, okay, and it ended up being something I try to work on now too. But
I don't think anybody with any kind of recovery is going to tell you, go double down on the number 6 horse.
No,
You know, and then you're like, oh no, number 3 is my horse. You know, no, nothing like that. But when it comes to stuff like some major life decisions or my perspective, because my perspective at 4 years is completely different than it is at 10.
Right.
And perspective is everything. Perception is everything. But perspective is the way I feel on the inside about something. And if I'm wrong and someone tells me I'm wrong, it's going to sting. It's going to hurt. My ego is going to be hurt a little bit, right? But if I make adjustments, ultimately there's a better recovery option than there was with me just being hard-headed. See, that's part of our problem. If we read the 12 and 12, I think it's around step 4, it starts talking about how undisciplined we are, okay? How alcoholics are an undisciplined people, right? And we don't like to, well, discipline doesn't necessarily mean just like in the Army, Chris, what you're used to, like strict discipline. And discipline can mean anything. You know, I'm not sleeping on that side of the bed, or I'm not taking a bath, I'm taking a shower. And by God, and they tell stories in AA about how, you know, a family was new and they started, the cook in the family, whether it be the husband or the wife, it doesn't matter. The cook would take the ham and cut both sides off of the ham and discard the ends, right? And so finally, you know, the guy's like, why do you do that? Or the lady asked the cook, why do you always do that? And the cook was like, well, you know, that's what we always do in my family. We cut the ends off. And he's like, I don't think you're supposed to cut the ends off. And they're like, we've always done that, so we're going to keep doing it, right? And so the dinner arrives or whatever, and everybody shows up. And he asked, or she asked, the parent of the cook, because this is a small family, a new family. And so one of them asked the parent of the cook, why do we cut the ends off of the ham or the turkey or whatever it is, you know, that we're cooking? You know, they say they've always done it. And the parent says, oh, that's because the pan I had wouldn't fit the full-size thing.
Whoa.
See, it's perception, and some of it's taught perception. And of course, I have my, but man, sometimes when we have that open-mindedness part of the HOW, the open-mindedness, honesty, and when we have the open-mindedness part, we get to see a whole perspective that we never even thought existed. And it may fit into our lifestyle. It did to mine. Yeah. Anyway.
And, you know, I'll take that a little further too, Chris. Here's another scenario to that. And who do I listen to? You know, you came in here and took the bull by the horns. You got a great sponsor. I know your sponsor. You work a solid program, okay? Say you got a dude that rolls in and he sits in meetings and he drinks coffee and doesn't have a sponsor, doesn't work a step, never said a word, doesn't really have a program other than he's not drinking and he's sitting in meetings, and that's great. But if he comes to me and says, hey, man, I'm seeing something here, I'm going to give it about 5% of what he said, and I'm going to briefly consider it, and probably and if it's in that situation and he's, you know, that's where his mind's at, it's probably going to be something sort of ridiculous. And I've had this and sort of ridiculous anyway. But if you walk up to me and you go, hey, man, we need to talk, and we go talk, I'm going to very much listen to what you have to say because I know where you're coming from. So the year thing is the time is important, but also the quality of the program. You know what I mean? And
I think it goes into, you know, if, you know, let's say you are approached, you know, by somebody, you know, that has been coming to meetings but doesn't have the sponsorship, which is great. You know, they're still coming to meetings. They're trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, I think we as alcoholics tend to overcomplicate the hell out of everything. And, you know, I think if it gets to a point, fortunately I haven't been approached in my sobriety with anything like this yet, but I would think that if somebody's coming to me with a problem and saying, hey, I've noticed you started doing this, if I have to overthink it and think about it, I probably need to talk to my sponsor, you know, and get his opinion. But, I was just curious.
And you know what's crazy? I talked to mine last night. I had to call him and go, hey, man, I'm 5.5 years. And I called him and said, I need you.
Yeah.
And he talked to you. And he drove to town last night. And we talked. And here's the funny thing. It was 3 days after. I went one day. I didn't mention it to him.
Yeah.
The second day, I said, I need to talk to you. And he goes, okay, I can do it tomorrow. I said, that's fine. He goes, do we need to do it now? I said, no, it's not that. It's not dire need.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked last night. Here's what's funny. Everything he told me, I already knew. Like verbatim. I knew what he was going to tell me, but hearing it come from him, and that's because...
Makes a difference.
But it's because we've done it so long together. I know this is the right thing to do, but I need that guidance of that stamp of approval, like, this is where it's going.
Need to make sure I'm on the right path.
Yeah, yeah, and just verbally hear that sometimes, you know? And... but I do, man, in this program, I've had, there's a lot of, especially with the men's side of it, there's a lot of men that they got a year, 18 months, and man, they're solid as a rock, and that's great. And I very much respect and value anything they tell me. I want to listen.
Yeah.
And there's a few ladies, the one being right across from me right here, probably the main one that
Don't call me a lady.
Well, Mike, you know. But Jill is great. I mean, I talk to her when I have certain things that you know, I feel like she could shine some light on.
Yeah.
And I very much value what she has to say in her opinion, and you know, it gives me a lot to think about. So it's a growth thing today. But you know, you take with all the wisdom from people around you and try to do the best you can with it. And you know, my record on making decisions, I'm like, it was kind of like my bar fight record. I'm like 0-82, you know, but like all you guys records on telling me the right thing to do is like 10,000-0. So that's kind of how that works, you know?
I could see that.
And yes, especially the
relate
bar
to that.
fight record. Yeah. You can see me.
I win all my
82.
bar fights.
I'm like the
All
fat,
two of them.
I'm like the fat Conor McGregor, you know, without the skills. That's what I am.
I never fought the bar. I let it win.
I had what
Chuck
I had of
Norris shit.
Connor was the mouth. I just didn't have the rest of it, you know, in the bar. So, but yeah, you know.
Well, tradition 2. Before I forget, I want to read tradition 2. And for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants; they do not govern. So, what does that mean? Nobody's in charge. God is in charge. Decisions are made by vote, and vote made by who shows up at a business meeting.
That's right.
And that's so when you walk in and you want to know who's in charge, nobody. God is in charge. Sit down and be quiet until you figure this shit out, right?
Right.
That's it.
I've had, you know, over the years, you've had people come in and go, "Who's in charge? I need like, good luck, man." Even the cops show up, want to know who's in charge.
I mean,
There really ain't
I
nobody in charge when they show
I did it. I
up.
looked at Mike, Randy, Joe, Phil.
And then
Like
they point,
four
and then they
horsemen.
point to the new guy because you know the new guy is still in charge when he first gets here.
Well, that guy told me, you know, you're the most important person in the room. This is my second day, bud.
That
Well, that
only
means you're still in control.
good thing that only lasted a day. Oh, we got an email. We got an email from Jane R. this week.
Oh, hey, Jane.
Yeah, she sent us an email, and I am fixing to read it. It's titled "Shout Out." Says, "Hi, y'all. Thanks for the shout out. I never miss an episode. Terry P. Why have I never met him? I really enjoyed the 2 episodes he participated in. Y'all rock. Your guests are well picked." Hey,
Well, until today.
Y'all work
Stop.
cheap though. Y'all work cheap.
keep
guys.
on keeping on.
Y'all were in the budget.
We called it in second string.
That's
And,
right. That's right.
And that was from, and I think I have seen Jane and Terry in the same room at the same time.
They have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just doesn't realize it. So I've never seen Bruce Wayne and Batman in the same room at the same
Well, Terry P might be Bruce Wayne and Batman. We don't know. He could be.
Could be Peter Parker.
Well,
or Peter Pan. We never know. Oh, man. So we have our listening audience still spans the globe. It goes from Ireland, United Kingdom, Taiwan, Bulgaria, Australia, Denmark, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and the UAE.
you said one's in the UK.
Yeah.
We also had one at the Circle K.
Yeah.
So what was that? Maybe 2. I don't know.
Oh, well. Oh, God. Now you're going to have me asking at every Circle K here.
You got Herbie K's.
3,185 total plays.
Okay.
So, yeah. We have 94 Spotify followers. That's up 3 from the other day. And, you know, I always encourage folks to listen to us on Spotify so I can keep up with the analytics, but it's more important to get the message out. So
Yeah.
if Apple Podcast, I ran into JS at a meeting, and I mean, I was walking him through the whole downloading Spotify stuff and all that. And later on, like the 24 hours later, I had it on Apple Podcasts, and it would have just been so much easier for me to show him.
I did go on there. That's like the simplest thing ever if you want
Yeah.
to find us. I know some people said Spotify was a little
It was a pain
confusing
in the
there.
butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real easy if you have an iPhone. It's 2 seconds. You've got everything there. And hey, I do want to say this too. This is, you know, we've been working on this for a while and joking with you guys, but it's pretty cool that a lot of our friends and recovery people, we call them and they stop what they're doing and come up here. Nobody in this deal is getting paid an appearance fee. Chris asked about one, but we're going to write him a bad check when he leaves here. But
Brought him an IOU.
you know, yeah. But yeah, y'all, all you guys that have been on here, Terry, all the way down to Mike. Remember Phil F doing it at the Koala Club.
Oh, with an iPad, recording with an iPad.
Phil goes, "What do I do? Just speak into this thing?" I'm like, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." And then Mike tried to leave it. He goes, "Mikey, where are you going? Sit down." That's
Yeah,
what he
I
told
thought
him.
I was going to leave it with Matt and Phil. I didn't know I was going to have to stay.
Feels like not happening. So, but you know, we've already come a long way from just that. But I go through and I listen to these and you guys' stories, you know, and you don't get to listen to them in the moment sometimes when you're right here. But man, we've had the most awesome people this last year, and it's going to get real good this year too.
Oh yeah, season 2 is only going to get better.
And look, y'all got our
It can
email.
only get better.
got through the
Joke there.
We got through the 12 steps.
Yeah.
You know, but hey, y'all holler at Mike. Really, if you want to come on, if you want to tell your story, you want anything you got going on, that's what we're here to do, and we want to help the newcomer, and that's what this is all about. So y'all holler at us. We love to have people on and do that. So, but Chris and Thomas, y'all are awesome too. For it's freezing cold
About
outside.
to wrap up another episode, guys. Appreciate you stopping by. So we have been in Rule 62 Studios. That's what this is, in Bossier City, Louisiana, and this has been the Grouch and the Brainstorm.